Hi, my name is Simon Hedley, known to my clients and partners as a Strategic Alchemist and an ultimate connector. I'm a chartered accountant who brings together and bridges the worlds of business philosophy, finance, marketing, optimization, ontology, and so much more. Always focused on one thing, the simple idea that can make the difference to people and projects so we can tip the scales in their favor and get them complete. Pause, Stop, Reset is all about the three little words that can make the difference. They have for me and my clients, and I hope they will for you too. During the show, you'll get to learn about my guests' real-life experiences and the insights and lessons they've learned as they've navigated the resets in their personal and business lives, which you'll be able to leverage yourself. So let's start the show. Welcome back to Pause, Stop, Reset, the podcast where we explore the moments in life that lead to breakthroughs, growth, and transformation. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Ivan Misner, the founder and the father of modern networking. He founded BNI in 1985, which today has over 345,000 members across 76 countries. He's also a prolific author, a speaker, a thought leader. He spent decades helping entrepreneurs build powerful relationships that deliver real results. But beyond all that, he's traveled to 7 continents. He's a magician, karate black belt, and so much more besides. So without further ado, Ivan, welcome back to the conversation. Welcome back to Pause, Stop, Reset.
Thanks. It's a real pleasure to be on. And I appreciate you inviting me.
Now, I can't wait. I've been looking forward to reconnecting for some time. And you and I first met thanks to Alex Mendoza, like acknowledgement at the Pathfinder Summit live in Texas years ago. You've up to a lot of things. People may not know you, but they may do. Who is Ivan Misner today? Who are you? And what are you focused on today? Let's sort of start there at the beginning.
Well, I would love to, but let me go back to Mendoza. He asked me to talk about some of the failures and successes of scaling my company. And that nudge has led me to be working for the last 4 or 5 years on a book called Garage to Global.
I love that.
How do you build your business from your garage, which I literally, part of my business was in my garage, to become a global enterprise. And so Alex and that presentation that I did was really the beginning of my thinking about this concept of scaling a business and how do you do it effectively. So I need to reach out to Alex and thank him for that suggestion, because I was annoyed at first because I was like, man, I don't want to write a new speech, but it ended up working out well.
He's a master at that, the little nudge. And
Yeah.
Alex, if you're there, we miss you. Come say hi, come on the show. Likewise, Alex is a very busy guy, but also if you can get hold of him, but it's, love Alex dearly, miss him dearly. He's helped a lot of people like yourself. I think the ripples of what you guys have been doing for decades and decades is quite extraordinary. But let's go back to it though. So today, who are you today and what's your current focus?
Well, BNI's been around over 40 years now. And I spent the first 30 years basically being King Arthur, leading the charge and building the business. And for the last 10 years, I've kind of transitioned from being King Arthur to Colonel Sanders. And, I'm basically the spokesperson for the organization. And this is what I get to do for a living. I get to talk to interesting interviewers all over the world, do a lot of interviews, write. I write books. And speak. I have an opportunity to do a lot of presentations around the world. So that's who I am. And I do all of that to support the organization I founded, BNI. I'm still involved in BNI. I'm still on the board and still active. I just don't run the day-to-day operations. I earned all this gray hair.
I lost mine.
Well, I'm surprised I haven't. And so I'm in a good place in terms of profession. I've kind of gotten to I'm living the life that I spent decades working towards.
And say that's the entrepreneur dream, right? To have the business running without being stuck in the business. And maybe we just go there for a second. What is your vision for where BNI and networking and really business connection can go, right? When you started, there was no AI, there was no Zoom calls.
There was no internet.
There's no internet.
Okay? There was no internet. 1985, the internet didn't exist, at least not publicly. And here's an interesting tidbit. By 1986, I had a few employees. We were starting to expand in a couple of different states in the U.S. The second largest line item in my budget was the telephone bill. Employees were number one, telephone bill number two. Today, I don't even know where the telephone bill is in the budget. It's so small.
I remember the conference call days, right? Do you ever get the conference call line where it's like, that's $20,000. And you're like, how did that happen for a phone call? Pretty bigger with what you were doing as well with the global networks.
Yeah, well, we did go to conference calling at some point. We had one of those services that didn't cost us thousands of dollars to do. But back in the day, the phone bill was expensive. Now, you can't even find it. And so the technology has been a game changer in the organization and allowing us to grow. Our goal is to have millions of members worldwide. We're about a third of the way through to that 1 million member mark. And we really want to make a difference for more people all around the world. In the trailing 12 months, the past 12 months, BNI has generated for its members something like 16 or 17 million referrals, which generated $26.6 billion with a B, $26.6 billion worth of thank you for closed business. That's the amount of business our members recorded. They reported and recorded it into our system that they got. Now, just to put that into perspective, based on the United Nations estimates of GDP, gross domestic product, there are actually 100 countries in the world with a lower GDP than what BNI generated for its members in the last 12 months. That blows my mind. It's amazing. And I look back to 40 plus years ago, and not in my wildest dreams did I think we would be generating as much business for our members as small countries in the world.
Let's go back to the beginning of your journey, right? If you look back on your life, Ivan, up till now, what have been the biggest shifts and resets that you've been through?
Well, I think that BNI in and of itself is an example of a shift. It was me pivoting because I was a management consultant. I got most of my business through speaking engagements and referrals. And I had lost a pretty big client. And so I needed a platform to generate more referrals. And I'd gone to a lot of networking groups, many networking groups. And I found that they were either too mercenary and I needed to go home and get a shower after talking because everyone was trying to sell to me, or they were too social. It was happy hour and hors d'oeuvres and nobody was doing business. And so I wanted to put together a group that had a focus on business but wasn't mercenary and was relational but wasn't social. And that the glue that would hold it together is this idea of giver's gain, this idea that if I help you, you help me, we'll all do better as a result of it. And I think that was probably the first, professionally, my first big reset. BNI truly was an example of necessity being the mother of invention. I needed business. I didn't like what was out there. And so I formed a group. And by the way, I'd like to tell you that I had this intention of having 11,400 groups in 70 plus countries, but I just wanted some referrals. And people asked me, would you help me open up a second group? And I'm like, no, this isn't what I do. And they talked me into it. And we opened a second group. And then there was two more. And I said, this isn't what I do. And they talked me into it and I opened. So at the end of the year, we ended up with 20 chapters and I wasn't trying. And that's when it hit me. That's when I had what I call my Brody moment. Remember the movie Jaws? Towards the end, Sheriff Brody is throwing chum out into the water and you see the shark. You actually see the shark for the very first time. It comes out and he sees the shark and he turns to the captain and he says, you're going to need a bigger boat. And that was my Brody moment. When we opened 20 chapters and I wasn't trying, I realized I'm going to need a bigger boat. This is going to be way bigger than I anticipated. And that's when I sat down and started to think about how to scale the business.
And if you look back for the decade before, right, you're clearly a powerful communicator. You've done some practicing, as we would say, over the decades. How did you get into the speaking, into management consulting?
Well, interesting story. I was actually accepted to law school and was going to go to, that had been my goal for 8 years or so, high school and college. And I was accepted to law school. And something I'd like to tell you, I have a clear reason why I changed my mind, but I just changed my mind. I really think that intuition sometimes is your soul talking to you. And I just thought, I don't think I want to do this. I have no idea what I want to do, but I don't think I want to do this. And so I did. I turned down the admission, and I decided to go on to just have something to do for a master's degree, and then ended up with a doctorate degree in organizational behavior. And it was that training plus a couple of jobs that I had that led me into being a full-time consultant.
Yeah. Again, I love that you bring that to the table. I'm of a sort of mid 40s now, late 40s, right? And there are a lot of people in the early 20s now, which are marketing experts. We've all seen them online that have sort of watched a video and now the expert, and it isn't got that depth. And I love that, right? We're in a very agile world today that none of us predicted a few decades ago. Where it goes, who knows?
Yeah. Well, I had some management experience. I mean, I worked for the Department of Commerce. I had 500 people reporting to people who reported to me. I worked for a transportation company that I had an executive role, and then I was a general manager for a short period of time of a light manufacturing plant. So I did all of those things. And then I started my consulting business after the general manager position. So I came to it with both education and experience, not decades of experience, but experience.
That's what I said actually online before we spoke today. You have a humbleness, humility about it. Like, yeah, I did this work for them and managed this many people. That's actually an extraordinary thing to be doing at a young age, right? Is that something that you think is still available for entrepreneurs today to quickly jumpstart into those sort of positions?
Well, you got to look for them. You have to look for them. I looked for that role. I heard it was available and I went after it, and was lucky enough to get it. I appreciate your comment about humility. I honestly think that humble people don't think less of themselves. They just think of themselves less. And I would rather come across, hopefully that way, than overconfident.
Yeah, and I think it's why BNI has lasted. A lot of other networking groups sort of started up. They've obviously grown, franchised, and then sort of died away, right? Sort of the King Alfred, as you called it, moving on.
Yeah. And there were networking groups before BNI, so we weren't even the first.
Yeah. When you're growing and scaling a business to that scale, clearly there are good days and bad days, staff change, all the stuff that goes on. I like to distinguish sort of pausing, stopping, and resetting. If you look back across those, which of those is hardest for you, and why do you think that is?
I knew you were going to ask that question, and I struggled with an answer on it. And you may not like my answer, but it's how I feel. I think the pause, for me, the pause, stop, and reset, which is a great concept. But for me, it's not a state of being. It's about the context in the state of being. So there may be times where I push to pause. I want to pause. And then there may be times where I don't want to pause, right? So it's context. This issue is about contextual intelligence. It's about understanding the context of the challenge that you may be dealing with. And so there are times where I did, in fact, put a pause on an issue, or I did stop an issue. Or there are definitely times where we reset, like with COVID. Now, when COVID happened, we had about 9,800 groups. We have 11,400 now. When COVID hit, we almost overnight transitioned 9,800 groups to online, from weekly in-person meetings to weekly online meetings. Well, there were a lot of people that wouldn't do that reset. There were a lot of people, and I talked to many people, and I remember saying to them, COVID's going to last longer than you think. And so you have a choice, really. You can reset into this, you can pivot into this, or you can go out of business.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at the rawness and realness of it, right? It's like the ring of truth. It's like, do this or just quit. Like it's,
yeah, they didn't all take it well, but it was like, those are your choices. Because this isn't going to turn around in a couple of months. And even if it does turn around in just a few months, what are you going to do for the next few months? Right? You might as well use your network to support you through the process. And so there were people who refused to reset, but the overwhelming majority of people were thankful for the opportunity to reset. As a matter of fact, during COVID, we continued to grow. There are very few organizations in the world that can say they have over 40 years of consecutive growth, year on year on year. There was no year that we had less members than the previous year. And that's magical. And that was a massive reset that was thrown at us.
Yeah.
It was reset or die, pivot or die.
Yeah. And again, what I hear when you're speaking about stuff today is there's a grounded calmness, which I'm guessing is a mixture of experience. Like you've had that wisdom learned through time. But were you like this growing up? Did this come from mom and dad, from teachers?
This is training. I was, okay, I'm going to show you something. I rarely do this in an interview. When I was like 13 years old, my mother gave me this paper. Wait, you won't be able to read it. I'll read it to you. So it's been on my desk since I was 13. I'm 69. So it's been on my desk, my primary desk, ever since I was 13 years old. It says, diplomacy is the art of letting someone else have your way. Diplomacy is the art of letting someone else have your way. My mom gave this to me. She said, son, you're a bull in a china shop. You just knock people over. You have got to learn how to be more diplomatic and how to work with people. She said, this is about collaboration, not manipulation, but you got to learn how to work with people. And so look, it's a lifelong journey. You never quite get there, but I think it's a skill that I have really worked on. And calming people down when they're really upset is a powerful skill in leadership. I think leadership is not about managing and complying. It's about mobilizing and inspiring. And sometimes when people are afraid, the best way to inspire them is to calm them down. You know, if you listen to my BNI podcast, I have a podcast that I do every week for BNI members, and listen to my voice. And, you know, usually I talk, I'm pretty excited and I'm talking about this, but I did those podcasts where I was purposely very calm. And I would say, look, we're living in very difficult times. Your network is a beacon of hope in a sea of fear. And you can either get frozen by fear or you can get focused by fear. Let's get focused by fear. And here's how we can do that. And so my whole podcast during those first weeks and months was just to get people to be calm. Look, I've been frozen by fear. When I lost that big client before I started BNI, I threw myself a pity party, right? I was frozen by fear. And, you know, after 2-3 weeks, it's like, this isn't going to get me anywhere. I'm not going to get anywhere being frozen like this. I got to get focused. And my focus was, well, I'm going to start. I don't like these other networks I'm going to. I'm going to start my own. And it led to the biggest piece of my career. So nobody's ever picked up on the calm aspect before in any interview. I appreciate that. But I think there are times where it's really important for the leader to be the calmest person in the room if possible.
Yeah, it's why these are simple questions, but again, you clocked it. It's like the context, not the content. This isn't about the mechanics. There's a quality to real business growth that's distinct. You just BNI people across any group, there's always that bell curve, right? And one thing I find fascinating, like I don't have an answer for it today. There's the world of doing givers gain, doing collaboration, doing gentle. And there's a world that seems to be, so do you want to buy this or not? Buy my book, go. Like that seems to be coming back as what's winning in the marketplace in a certain world. In another world, that's being like completely destroyed and it's all relationship capital. I'm just curious, like if somebody's new to BNI, new to business, how do they navigate that? Because not everybody's a powerful salesperson. We've got Virginia, you and I know, who's awesome at people. You know, not everybody has that skill. And is it trainable?
Yeah, the short answer to that is yes. But let me come back to your I think you said it's about context, not content, which is a great phrase because I think your pause, stop, reset concept is great. And I have been both frozen and focused in each of those. And the key is to find context of what needs to be done. Do I need to pause? Do I need to reset? And so they're all hard sometimes, and they're all easy sometimes. It all, for me, is about the context. And you might pause a little while and rethink things and then move forward. Anyway, so your last question is, there's still a lot of people out there that are treating networking like a face-to-face cold calling opportunity. Hi, my name's Ivan. Let's do business.
Here's the business card. Give me a call. Bye. And it's like, what was that? Yeah.
Yeah. Look, there always has been. There probably always will be. One of the problems that we have is that we don't teach emotional intelligence, social capital, business networking in colleges and universities anywhere in the world. We never have. We probably never, well, I don't want to say never. I don't see it ending anytime soon. And I'll give you a really good reason. You don't have too many full-time tenured professors listening to your show, do you?
Probably not. No.
Okay, good. Because I will anger them all. Now, I have been an adjunct faculty member for 3 different universities over a 16-year period. I've been on the board of directors for a university where the president of the university reported to us. So I've seen the organization as a professor and as a board member. And I am here to tell you that courses are taught by full-time tenured professors. I'm sorry, they're created by full-time tenured professors. Adjuncts like me don't create courses. Can't. It's the full-time tenured professors. And here's the rub. Almost all full-time tenured professors in business have never actually run a business. And so they don't know aspects of running a business. It's one of the reasons why almost no universities have a sales techniques.
Interesting.
Class. They don't have closing techniques. Why? Oh, I don't want to get my hands dirty and sell something. And so what happens is people leave with a degree in marketing and they just go right out to direct selling, cold calling. They treat networking like a face-to-face cold calling opportunity because nobody's teaching them that it's all about relationships. It's not about transactions. Transactions come about through the development of relationships. And so we're not teaching it in school. That's the biggest problem.
No, I love that. And it's interesting. Recently, somebody we know, she's looking for work, went through a marketing course. And what she learned is kind of 10 years out of date. It's just like the actual mechanics, the doing of it, just not there. And I think that is a big question between the theory and reality, right? I've met a architecture professor on a flight before. And I was like, so what have you built? It's like nothing. It's like, but surely that's what you do. I do get theory and I do get reality, and it's the balance point. And we are seeing nowadays new forms of education, right? Sort of the Khan Academies, the online resources. Do you think they are useful? You still need that sort of apprenticing, the mentoring, I know you got your magician background as well. That's often a sort of a mentor relationship, community relationship.
Amateur magician, just to be clear. I'm an
Somebody pay him $1, then he's professional. Okay, come on.
Yeah, no, I don't want that. And I did it mostly while my kids were young. I was a member of the Academy of Magical Arts. So I did know how to do it, but I haven't, my kids are grown up now, so I haven't done too much magic. So do things like the Khan Academy help? Yeah, I think university systems in trouble. They're bleeding and they don't know where the wounds are completely, or they're unwilling to fix the wounds. And I don't want to go too deep down that rabbit hole because I don't want to get political. But I think there is such an infrastructure and administration that is bloated at the university level, and it needs to be cut back dramatically. And I think online training programs are either going to force universities to dramatically change, and they're paying lip service to it now. They're either going to force universities to dramatically change, or they're going to be the future Kodak and Blockbusters of the world, where they get so disrupted, they go under.
I love that. And One of the questions we ask is about sort of sending back advice to younger selves right now. One of the areas maybe if somebody is new to networking, even that phrase winds me up these days, by the way. It's like, I don't like that conversation of who's in your network, who's your friend's network. It's a weird thing to be doing. How should they start to approach relationship building, where you have to navigate, I've got to feed the family, got to get my rent paid while seeding long-term stuff? What sort of the nuggety 101 relationship building from you?
Well, first of all, if you're working for a company and they're telling you to do cold calling, I wouldn't give it up completely. I used to teach people how to cold call. It can work. I hated it. I don't want to ever do it for the rest of my life, but it can work. And at the same time, I would start working towards, if you don't like the word networking or you don't like, and by the way, I read an article a few years ago that says networking is dead. It's all about relationship marketing. And then every single thing they listed was what I had been talking about for networking for a couple of decades, right? It's like, call it whatever you want. I don't care. Call it relationship marketing. Call it business networking. It doesn't matter. It's all about building relationships. And so, I don't recommend that people that are new in business drop everything else to go to this because it takes time. In one of my books, it's called the time confidence curve. It's no matter what business you're in, it's going to take a certain amount of time before people have confidence in your ability to provide a quality product or service and then refer you. So while you're doing the things that you hate doing, that you know need to be done, like cold calling or direct selling or whatever, start building the relationships. And your question is, where do you start? The answer is with the VCP process, VCP. Visibility, credibility, profitability. When you go to networking organizations, a lot of people hate going because they feel like they've been, slimed and sold to. So why go? You go to work through VCP. First, you have to be visible. People have to know who you are and what you do. And then over time, you have to get to credibility with those people where they know who you are, they know what you do, they know you're good at it. They know you're good at it because they've observed you. They know you're good at it because they know people who've used your business. And then eventually you go from visibility to credibility to then profitability, where people know who you are, they know what you do, they know you're good at it, and they're willing to refer business to you. This is not a mathematical formula, it's a process. You go from visibility to credibility to profitability. That takes time. But when you get there, you now understand that networking is more about farming than it is about hunting. If it's hunting, which is the direct selling, you basically eat what you kill that day. But if you're farming, you get bushels and bushels of food and referrals. You get business when you're on vacation. When you're networking or referral marketing or whatever term makes someone comfortable, that's what makes a long-term successful business.
No, 100%. And we've been talking a lot internally, this thing between the hunter mindset, the gatherer, and this sort of farmer gardener mindset, which is a really different mindset approach. Is there anything else you wish you could, I love that, by the way, VCP, absolutely love that. Is there anything else you wish you could send back to that sort of 15-year-old Ivan, the 10-year-old Ivan, that would most make a difference to you, do you think?
Well, I think I would say two things. One is live your values. That when you start getting off track from your values, you're going to go in a direction that you won't be happy with. So live your values. And I'm pleased to say that I have really been good throughout most of my life, really trying to live my values. The one thing that I would say that would probably surprise the 15-year-old self would be, don't worry about making mistakes. You will. It's inevitable. The thing is, recognize it quickly, own up to it immediately, and find a solution to fix it, because your mistakes will end up being your tuition for success. If you learn from your mistakes, they'll be your tuition for the success that will follow. So don't worry about mistakes. That will make you stronger if you identify it and resolve it quickly.
I like that a lot. I like that a lot. And it has me, we've been talking a lot with the 5 connections about joint ventures and strategic alliances like referral business, masterminding. You and I know not all of those work out to plan. Some of those mistakes, you can clock it and go, that's the wrong direction, pause, out of the car, go this way. If somebody's found themselves in a joint venture, in a business relationship, in a business partnership that's not right, how do they exit without blowing up the world, especially when things are so hyper-connected, right? I'm sure somebody goes, Ivan, what do you think about so-and-so? And you want to go run away, but you can't really do that so easily in a modern sort of legal world. Well, you can, but it's sort of, so again, I'm pointing at sort of, I love when you make a mistake and you realize it, course correct quickly, but how does somebody do that in business, do you think?
Well, if you have a partnership, it does become more complicated because it's almost like a marriage in some ways, and separating out is difficult. I'll give you an answer that involves employees, but I'm going to carry it over to partnerships or joint ventures. I had lunch with Harvey McKay many years ago, and he wrote "Swim with the Sharks Without Getting Eaten."
Amazing guy.
Amazing guy, and he said something to me that has resonated with me for years. He said, I have lost more sleep over people I have kept than I have people I have fired. And he said, I lose sleep over letting people go, but I have lost more sleep over the ones I kept. And the truth is, when I realized this is not good, you give people chances, you give them opportunities, but when you realize this isn't going to work out, let them go. Don't keep looking for some other solution. And there, that's a judgment call. When is enough? I don't know. But he made it really clear. Don't linger when you know it's just not working out and you've given them a couple of opportunities. And I would say the same for partnerships. When you know it's over, it's over. Try to part ways without lawyers involved whenever possible, which sometimes is just not possible. But And if you think it's salvageable, look for opportunities to salvage it. I wrote a whole book on this topic, actually. I was just talking about it with a staff member. It's called The Third Paradigm.
Beautiful. The Third Paradigm.
The Third Paradigm. Yeah, it's a short book. And it talks, the first paradigm is competition. Everybody competing with each other. The second paradigm is cooperation. The third paradigm is co-creation, where you actually, as a group of people, work together to create something. And so if you want a master class on how do you take disaster and failure and make it success, and you have to still be committed to doing it. So if you figured, I don't want to be with this partner anymore, this won't help. But if you're trying to figure it out, this book is a master class on how to co-create your way out of disaster. And it's got a true story in it, and it's got a survey of thousands of people, as well as our theories on the idea of co-creation. It's a really powerful book.
I'll get that on my reading list. You've written, I think, 30 books now. Is that right? Like it's
30, yeah.
And more to come, I'm sure.
I'm working on 2 more, yeah. Including the one nudged by Alex, Garage to Global. We just submitted it, 7 chapters to a couple of different publishers day before yesterday. So,
yeah, it's such a valuable thing, I find, to actually do the writing, because it refines your thinking. And it's sort of the context of the book alters what shows up. And as you were talking about what Harvey said, one of my mentors talked about cutting bait. And there's always this conflict, this tension between cutting bait and the dip, Seth Godin's thing, sort of that one more inch from gold. When that farming metaphor comes on, you never know if that one next phone call from that guy that's wasted your time for 4 years is actually, hey, can you come to this 6-figure contract? And I've seen that happen so many times where
it happens.
Out of left field, and had you go away in that moment, and vice versa. So that
I'll give you a good example of it. We have a financial planner in a group who'd been a member for 2 years, and he'd gotten some referrals, but not a big one. And he was coming up for renewal, and he talked to the president, and the president said, "Look, you're in the hardest profession. You're investing people's life savings. So the time confidence curve is the longest for you. It's the shortest for a florist. It's the longest for you. You really should give it 1 more year." And he said, I'll give it one more year. And 2 weeks later, he got the biggest referral of his life in the group. Had he left, first of all, that spot would have been filled like right now, because it's financial planners are in almost every group. So literally 2 weeks after he was having second thoughts, he got the biggest referral of his life.
Yeah, and that's the bit of the business growth I find fascinating. My background is sort of mathematics, banking, auditing. Other side of me is very ontology, magical mysticism, and I call it strategic alchemy. You couldn't make it up moments, right? Sort of the random message to Alex ends up being one of those phone calls to these things and how it goes. I know we've got to go quick for your time today a little bit. What books or movies have been ones that have sort of brought you joy on this journey or helped you pause, stop, reset?
Well, I mean, the movies that I've enjoyed have nothing to do with business for the most part. I've enjoyed them. But books, probably the first book that really became part of integrating into BNI was the book, The E-Myth, by Michael Gerber. And, I read his book and I happened to be doing an interview on the radio and he was listening to the interview and he got my phone number. He got website, my phone number, and called. And I was like, wow, what an honor it is to talk to you. And we've been friends now for 20 years. And as a matter of fact, on my blog, I have a blog, ivanmisner.com. It's all free stuff up there. About 2 weeks ago, he and I did a quick blog interview, a video interview that's up there. So he's been a friend for years. The book Conscious Capitalism was important to me because of giving back to the communities from which you draw. And Crucial Conversations, really good book on how to deal with conflict. And it's mentioned in the third paradigm several times. And techniques from Crucial Conversations are actually used in the true story that is told in the book.
I love that. And I love how you blend, let's say, the mechanics and the practical communication human skills. The fact I can do this was because of 20 years of courses of learning how to say, ask a question, pause, listen, not like a robot, but I was sort of the weird nerd, not talking much guy. And Michael, I've not actually spoken to him directly, but his book impacted me in like 25, 26, coming across it through an action coach guy going, check this book out. And the rest is history, where your brain starts to think differently. Really good at communicating. And the Awaken the Entrepreneur Within book, that second one about the vision building with much more the fun stuff. I think between you guys and Jim Rohn, did you and Jim ever get close? Jim Rohn
Never
back in the
met
day?
Jim. Never met Jim. Love his content. I got really close to Jack Canfield. I know Jack really well, who's every bit as amazing as Jim was.
Yeah, I think it's sort of interesting. There's a whole group of people now in their 20s that are finding these wisdom teachers, these mentors, these marketers that don't even know the people that they're learning from, that learn from.
Yes,
and that pure form's getting lost. But hopefully out of books like the ones you're sharing and the wider philosophy, it can transfer on. I'm curious, this sort of before we go to the wrapping up stage, when you think back to one of your hardest moments of reset, right? What was it that helped it through? Was it your partner? Was it your connections, your network? What helped you navigate those big, challenging times?
Well, my wife at the time, Elizabeth passed away 5 years ago, but she was absolutely, I used to call her my Mrs. Adams. I don't know if you know the context, but John Quincy Adams, John Adams, actually, he would always go to his wife for advice. His wife was his, best advisor. And it was funny because if I had a challenge, I would go on up into the house and say, Mrs. Adams, I need some advice. And so she was absolutely there for me. I also think I tend not to wing it with stuff. I'm not at my best when I wing it. So I try, I like to plan my spontaneity. So
you're a Willy Wonka, are you? It's sort of there's a mechanism behind the creativity.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you read the book, the third paradigm, you'll see that. And I'm going to tell you a secret, okay? It never says this in the book. It does not say this in the book. the book has got a survey of thousands of people. It's got our own theories. And then it's got this story about Richard and this online platform and how it started with competition and then it went to cooperation. And then finally, Richard figured out, I'm going to try co-creation and co-create this platform. And he went into a meeting knowing it would be the worst day of his professional career or the best day of his professional career. And it ended up being the best day of his professional career. And then we talk about how you implement this concept of co-creation. So here's the part that we never say in the book. Richard is my middle name. The platform is BNI Connect, and Richard is me. The closest thing we get to saying anything like that is at the end of the book, we say, the story of Richard is true, and it happens to be one of the co-authors. We didn't want it to be so much of the book to be about me, so we anonymized it. But if you really want to see my journey in dealing with conflict, the most serious piece of conflict I ever dealt with in my professional career, if nothing else, read the stories about Richard that's intertwined into every chapter.
No, you've got me wanting to read it now all the more. And you're a master at this, right? Which is telling stories. I always think the magician skill comes in. I've got a good friend, David. He's a magician. There's a guy called Vin. Do you know Vin, the presenter? He's got a background of magician. I'll send you links for it afterwards.
Yeah, okay.
But his background was magicians and then got into presenting. And as a result, something in that mix, I think, is really quite magical and creates powerful communicators and business transformation people.
Great magicians tell great stories. And that's one of the reasons why I was never a great, I'm a pretty good storyteller, but I was never a great magician because I would just do the trick. Ta-da. And, I didn't put the time to do the stories in between, but my kids were happy.
That's the main thing, right? That is the main thing. As we go into sort of the wrapping up stage, Ivan, is there anything you want our listeners, whether they're going through a challenging time or they're crushing it in life and business, what's the one thing you want them to be left with today?
Well, the thing that I said about networking being more about farming than it is about hunting is so true. Keep that in mind. There's a lot of content out there. I've got some books. There's a good book by Bob Berg and Susan Rowan on networking. Read how to do this. Don't wing it. But the one thing that I would like people to take away is the one thing that I tell business people that I think is the thing that they fail at the most is they keep chasing bright, shiny objects. If you want to really be successful, you got to do 6 things 1,000 times, not 1,000 things 6 times. And it doesn't have to be 6, it could be 5, it could be 7, but you do a handful of things and you do them 1,000 times. Now, what things? Well, you read books like, the E-Myth or Crucial Conversations. You listen to shows like this. You find mentors, virtual mentors, who give you ideas, and then you take those ideas and don't do 1,000 things 6 times. Do 6 things 1,000 times. It's about that ongoing consistency. And entrepreneurs aren't good at this. They like chasing bright, shiny objects, which is fine if you don't want to be horribly successful. But if you want to scale a business, it's about doing 6 things 1,000 times.
No, I love that. So true. I've got one other thing I think to sort of underline. I'm a big believer that to really grow and scale over time like you have to have those mastermind alliances and inner circle connections. And it sounds like Michael, Jack Canford and others have been there. There'd be public, but if you got somebody that's been sort of your inner circle connection person, your mastermind alliance people that have been there on the decades?
Yeah, I would say it's probably Stuart Emery. Stuart co-wrote a book with me called Who's in Your Room? And it's all about the people that you surround yourself with. Stuart and I've used him to counsel me on many things over the years. And Stuart's a really good man and a very good friend. And he's the one responsible for the credit card commercials, the priceless credit card commercials. He helped, I think it was MasterCard, create the priceless credit card commercials. And there's a great story just in that. So he's been probably my closest personal confidant.
Yeah, I like to bring it out because I'm a big believer that there is no self-made man, right? We're all part of this collaborative work. And I'm also, just before we wrap up, There's obviously going with I'm looking to work with these kind of people, normal sort of networking business skills. How do you think people can discover those priceless connections, right? You can't sort of go to the supermarket and buy one of those relationships.
No, you have to, networking is a contact sport. You got to go out and meet people. I mean, you can do some of it on Zoom, but I think Zoom's a great way to follow up with people, not necessarily the best way to meet and establish a relationship with people. So I urge people to go meet people at networking events, at conferences, make connections with somebody that you'd like to follow up with, and then follow up and do a one-to-one. And I have a system to do one-to-ones. Use it, don't use it. But when BNI, they use it. It's called the Gains Exchange. Stands for goals, accomplishments, interests, networks, and skills. And when I share those to you one at a time and you share yours to me, then we go deep pretty quick. We find out a lot about each other really quick. If I talk about my goals, you talk about your goals, and then accomplishments, et cetera, et cetera. And if you don't do that, then at least do a meaningful one-to-one where you're asking questions and learning about what the other person does. They learn what you do. And you set it up by saying to the person, we met at the recent BNI meeting or a chamber meeting or this convention, and I would love to get together with you in person or by Zoom and learn more about what you do so that I could possibly refer you in the future. And hopefully you'd be willing to learn more about what I do. And then don't sell to them. Don't sell to them. If they need your business, they'll tell you. A blind squirrel can find a nut. They'll stumble over business with you, but what you want to do is build a relationship, a referral relationship. You don't want to just sell to them. If you're selling to them, you're hunting. But if you're building a referral relationship, you're farming. And so one-to-ones are the key. By the way, we found in hard data, there was a research project done in Europe on one-to-ones in a region, and people who did one-to-one a month compared to people who did 4 one-to-ones a month. People who did 4 one-to-ones a month gave 100% more referrals, doubled, and they received 100% more referrals. So the people who did 1 a week versus 1 a month actually got twice as much business as the people who only did 1 a month. So there is a direct and dramatic linear correlation between doing one-to-ones and getting referrals. And so you want to build that relationship by doing something like a one-to-one afterwards.
I know we've got to wrap up. The reason I'm thoughtful is this is, as ever, the kind of stuff that should be taught in the UK, in the States, and isn't. If you're listening, government friends, get on with this. But more than that, thank you for coming on the show today. I know you've got a lot going on personally in business, and your time is very valuable. If you want to know more about this man, he's not hard to find out. Go to BNI, go to ivanmisner.com. And Ivan, any other thing we'll leave us with today before we wrap up the show?
I think that relationship networking is not only a great way to get business, it's an even better way to do business because you're doing business with friends, people who know, like, and trust you. And there's just no better way to build a powerful business and a powerful network.
Beautifully said. Well, with that said, that's the end of Pause, Stop, Reset today. Do check out BNI. Do check out Ivan's book. And that book he has on his table there, we want to go read that one.
I do. The third paradigm.
That's third paradigm, and new books coming forward soon. So thank you so much for having me on the show today and all you've done for decades, because I know how many of my friends, clients, and partners have benefited from your work over the years. Without them, we wouldn't have done what we did either. It is a win-win game. So thank you, sir. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye for now. Once again, I'm Simon Hedley. Thank you for listening to this episode of Pause, Stop, Reset, which is brought to you by the team at simonx.com and published by thesimpleidea.com. So you get maximum value and to access all the bonuses and gifts, make sure to head to pause.reset.com, register and explore the portal. And if you're looking for great people, check out onesmartnetwork.com. If you've enjoyed the show, do give us a positive review, subscribe, and share this episode with friends. I can't wait to share our next episode with you. Till then, remember you can always choose to pause, stop, reset.